require stormwater dischargers, people who are developers, anybody that wants to put in a road or put in a shopping mall or put in a subdivision. They're going to have to better define every pollutant that they are going to expose the ground to. If you're a developer and you're beginning a new construction project, what you don't know about the latest stormwater regulations can end up costing you a fortune. Builders are right now required by the State Water Resource Control Board to implement specific samplings and analytic procedures to determine whether best management practices are implemented on a construction site. Some of those procedures involve preventing further impairment by sediment and stormwater discharge, preventing other pollutants that you can't actually see, things that cause or contribute to exceedances of water quality. In other words, because the process of grading land removes the protective layer of vegetation, it contaminates the area where the rain is falling, and it also causes runoff. It goes into the closest storm drain or the drainage channel, and it flows directly into the nearest largest body of water. Existing and new permittees who fail to meet these new compliances face fines up to $500,000. Whereas the cost of getting sampling and monitoring permits can be anywhere from $500 to $1,500. And the point that I'm making here is that if we don't start requiring people who held them accountable, people who are out there paving, people who are out there covering up the ground, to be more accountable, who's going to suffer? We all do. And this law, these statistics right here, is a part of this movement. The fine for not doing it and not investigating what your stormwater runoff regulations are is much heavier than to just go down and get the permit. Read the law. Find out what it is. Find out what your rules are. Now on a smaller scale, we in our own lawns and landscaping can make a very significant difference. Whether it's from sprinkler overspray, car washing, hosing down the driveway, everyone is a potential contributor to urban runoff. Stormwater runoff occurs only when it rains. In either case, any kind of runoff can pick up the pollutants we talked about earlier, the motor oils, the pesticides, the fertilizer, and all that ends up in our waterways. There's a few simple guidelines that we can do on a personal scale to help prevent this. Using mulch on exposed soil can save 750 to 1,500 gallons a month, depending on how much you water. Don't your lawn shorter than 2 to 3 inches. Set your mower blade up 1 notch higher. Longer grass means less evaporation, less loss. That can save you 500 to 1,500 gallons a month. Replace your lawn and your high water use trees with plants that are less thirsty. Trees help soil actually retain moisture. The trees cool the ground temperature and they reduce the water waste because they're using the water. One mature tree can salvage up to 1,000 gallons of rainwater per year, and the surfaces of the leaves and the branches intercept and store rainfall. The root growth and the decomposition of the organic matter from the tree's natural shedding decomposes, and it feeds the soil. So if you increase your tree canopy on your property, plant large trees, native trees, with full crowns and broad leaves, plant evergreens. Encourage people in your community, at your local park, in your neighborhood play area, to plant more trees. All of these efforts are going to make a big difference not just in how we feel about our own contribution. We know we're doing something. We know that we are a part of this change, this way of thinking. But it also teaches the young ones in our household. They see us setting a good example. How do you know your grandchild will not grow up to be the next great builder? The next person who goes to Congress and starts lobbying because they saw, they knew, they were taught from a very young age what a difference each one of us can make. This I talk about all the time, composting your green waste. Avoid leaving your landscaping waste in and around storm drains. Collect lawn and garden clippings and compost them. Dumping green waste into creeks and storm drains is illegal. Just as illegal as littering. Because it pollutes. It congests natural water flows. Sediments add suspended solids to water, clogging up the gills of fish, blocking sunlight, and it affects photosynthesis of aquatic plants and the phytoplankton. Reduce the use of high nitrogen fertilizers, which produces excess unnecessary growth, and then it just requires more mowing. Nutrients from fertilizers such as phosphorus and nitrogen promote algae blooms and excessive plant growth. Algae growth depletes oxygen and makes it unavailable to fish. And again, that's where we talked about the reducing in the number of aquatic life, the fish. They're running out of oxygen. Dispose of hazardous materials properly. 1 quart of oil can contaminate 250 gallons of water, effectively eliminating that water from our water supply, or creating water that has to be treated. Inspect your irrigation system regularly. Don't water your lawn on windy days, it just blows it out into the street anyway. That could save you 300 gallons in one watering. If you do use a chemical alternative, and I do not recommend it, but there are some people who are still attached to that lifestyle, to your pesticide supplier about less toxic alternatives. Maybe you're not ready to quite go all the way organic. There are some companies out there that are producing less damaging, less toxic alternatives. We are making a difference. It's going to take a little bit longer with the pesticide companies. Pesticides don't just kill garden pests. They can also harm your beneficial insects. So using them overall is not a good idea. Yeah, they may do what they say on the label, but the long-term damage, you're not going to print will kill beneficial microbes. You're never going to see that on a pesticide label, but it does. Especially don't use pesticides if we're expecting rain. And certainly never mix them near a storm drain. And again, dispose of any containers as if it was hazardous waste. When you're considering a landscape project, all the planning, the blueprints, the estimates, picking out material, add a footnote, check with geological, your local land surveyor. Find out what your water table is below you. What part of the aquifer, what part of the recharge zone are you in? How much land do you really want to cover? Construction techniques in sustainable landscaping are parts of solutions to problems that are caused by runoff. Consider installing a dry creek bed, rain gardens,